Norman, and you're watching the Cafe of Hope. We're here today to discuss, the journeys of myself and others who've had to deal with the criminal justice system. How do you best combat it and deal with it and go through? And today we're going to talk about my journey. And you want to introduce yourself to the folks?
Yes. Hi, my name is Latifah Hughes, also Miss Preacher Rapper. I do gospel rap as well.
Latifah Hughes, Miss Preacher Rapper. And today we're going to talk about my journey. I wanted to share with you who your host is because we're going to go on a journey together. And I want you to know where I started and where I came from. I was born in Boston, Massachusetts. And my mom and my dad went through the domestic violence thing. So I watched my mom and dad fight since I was a little kid. And at first, I used to cry about it because my mom's getting beat. It's like, okay, this is not cool. I'm a little kid. That's mom. Fast forward, I went from being upset and angry to now I'm like disturbed, like, because they keep doing it. And when you come home, when you get up, you just never know what it's going to be. It's going to be a fight. It's going to be cookies. We're sitting at dinner. Everything's wonderful. The next you know, this fight breaks out. And you just kind of get used to it. And of all the things I remember, there's only one thing that stands out the most. One time, my parents were fighting, and we were upstairs. And we're at the top of the stairs crying. And my father yelled upstairs, "You better stop crying before I come upstairs and give you something to cry for." I remember very little from my childhood, but I'll never forget that statement. Because it just like hit me in my heart. You know what I'm saying? I'm crying because you're beating my mom, and you're telling me you're going to give me something to cry. What's worse than that?
Right.
Fast forward, we get old enough to go to school. So now we go to school, they're in school, we're playing with other kids, life is great. Then one day riding home from school, rocks came crashing through our bus windows. White kids threw rocks at us, called us niggers and called us names, and it was a busing crisis of the 70s in Boston. I was one of those kids on that bus when they was trying to integrate the schools. Now I didn't go to a white school, but my bus went through a white neighborhood. So I had to deal with coming home and going through the madness. And I went to my dad, I said, "Dad, who are these people?" Because I never met white people before. I said, "Why are they throwing rocks at me? Nobody's ever thrown rocks at me before." I said, "What are these names? I've never been called these names before." He looked at me, I looked at him, and then he walked away. And I didn't understand why. But I was left as a 9-year-old to process the busing crisis of integration, of a social change that wasn't welcome at the time. I didn't find out till I was older from one of my aunties that my father grew up in a town called Petersburg, Virginia. And when he grew up, white kids threw rocks and names at them. When he went home to my grandfather, his father, and he asked him the same questions I asked him, my grandfather told him, "That's just the way it is, son." So they eventually moved north to get away from Jim Crow South. And so for his kids to go through what he went through, I'm sure was traumatizing.
Right.
But at the end of the day, he left us to process it. And I don't process well. Well, one day the rock started, one day the rock stopped. For my mom, one day the beating started, one day the beating stopped. I came home from school, Dad's gone. And I'm like, "Where's Dad?" They're like, "He's gone." Nobody sat me down and said, "Hey, me and your mom aren't getting along." It's just, he's gone. I don't know where he went, what happened, didn't make any sense. And I learned 3 lessons as a young kid. One, it's okay to hit people. Because if my mother can be hit, anybody can be hit. 2, I better protect myself. Because when those kids threw rocks and names at me, nobody came to help me.
Wow.
And 3, I don't have to explain myself to anybody, and I can quit anytime I want. Because if my dad can quit on us, I can quit on anything. And that was the lens that I saw the world as I went forward.
Wow.
And we eventually moved around, single mom, 6 kids, you heard the story. We bounce around, we find a new house, a new situation. I go to a new school, and they find out something. In the 3rd grade, I'm illiterate. They put me in a thing called a dummy class. All the kids who couldn't read and write. And they just closed the door. Eventually, a teacher pulled me out of the dummy class, and she gave me a chance. And she said, "You're not a dummy, Andre. You just learn differently." And she taught me my learning style.
Yeah.
Miss Oliver went above and beyond what she had to do, and she did what she needed to do to help me become educated. Because in the 3rd grade, what I didn't know is they build prison cells based on 3rd grade math and science scores. So when I'm failing the 3rd grade, math, science, and English, the state and the country knows this is a baby that's going to jail. It wasn't a secret. Because if you can't pass these efficiencies at this level, then you're not going to graduate high school, you're going to be in the street, you're going to turn to crime, and thus we need a prison cell.
Absolutely.
So as hard as Miss Oliver tried, and as much work as she did, when I failed that first quarter, they started building myself. And I make it through the 3rd grade, I get on track, I get to middle school, and I'm poor. Can't get the things, Mom, I'm a free lunch kid. Teachers disrespect me for being on free lunch. Kids make fun of you. And school was just horrible. So I started hustling after school so I could buy the things to be accepted. It was all about being accepted in the 6th grade. And so I had to go hustle to get the things that I needed, that I thought I needed to be accepted, which took me on a path to prison. And I went through middle school just getting in trouble. I went through high school getting in trouble. And the biggest thing I remember from high school is my 6th grade teacher, Miss Ellis, gave me a trumpet. And she said, play this. By the end of middle school, I became really, really good at it. And she sent me to a magnet school so I could learn and become a better trumpet player. And when I got there, my friends talked me out of playing the trumpet. They said, Dre, black kids don't play the trumpet. It's stupid. You want to hang with us. You need to get rid of the trumpet. And it was either my friends or my trumpet. And I gave up my trumpet. I've been alone my whole life at one level. I'm a loner. My mother called me the other day. She's like, yo, are you okay? Because you always do this alone thing. And that's how I grew up, in a house full of people but by myself. So I gave up my trumpet, and I went with my friends. And I tell people, growing up poor is horrible. Growing up without a dad is horrible. Growing up in the hood is horrible. But people have done it and made it. If you try to grow up without a dream, it's not going to happen. And so the day I gave up my trumpet, I gave up my life. And I just gave my life to the streets. And I gave into the thing that they said about me in the 3rd grade. He will go to jail. It wasn't a 3rd grade math test that sank me. It was when I gave up my dream. That sank me. Wow. But I just want folks to know that as we go through this journey on the Cafe of Hope, that it's not something I read out of a book. Yeah. I wrote a book, right, but that book is based on reality. It's my journey, and it's a lot of people's journeys. When I was about 18, I got sent to prison. And at 18, I thought I knew everything. I thought I was out in the world, and I thought I was in charge. I stood in front of that judge and started reading off state sentences. 7 to 10 years armed robbery. 9 to 10 years armed assault with a shotgun. 9 to 10 years armed assault with a shotgun. 10 years robbery. 10 years kidnapping. 15 to 20 years armed carjacking. 15 to 20 years armed home invasion. Then they gave me 5 years from and after on a federal case for a pistol. And while I was inside, I was tried and convicted twice of attempted murder. I got 2 more 3 to 5 year sentences added on top of what I was already doing. If you added it all up, it comes to 105 years. So at 18 years old, when I think I should be going to college or going someplace else, I'm on a prison bus going to the penitentiary. And when I get off the penitentiary, I get there, I'm scared. I ain't gonna lie. You say, everybody, oh, you tough? No. I got off the bus that first day, I was scared. And when I got there, I didn't know what to do or where to go. When I got to the unit, it turned out to be a reunion of all my friends from high school, all my friends from juvenile, all my friends from the principal's office. It was like this big reunion of people from the neighborhood. And they were like, yo, Dre, what took you so long? We knew you was coming. And I was like, okay. So I got in with my friends. I went out and started hanging out. And for the first 6 years of my sentence, I lived the prison life. I got in and I just ran with the prison life. I'm saying that whole culture is one of its own. And I remember when I first came to jail, the caseworker sat me down. She said, you can go to college. You can get this certificate. You can learn how to drive a forklift. You can get your GED. I'm like, okay, cool. I went back to the unit. I called my mom because me and my mom's super cool. I said, yo, Mom, the lady told me I can go to college. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. And she was happy. And I was happy because I was a student. And it was time to go to school at 1 o'clock. So I lined up to go to school. My friends are like, yo, what you doing? I said, I'm going to school. They said, oh, he got the caseworker story. So what are you talking about? And he said, you see them guys over there? They from this gang. And they're going to cut your throat and do whatever to you because you're a lone wolf. You see them guys over there? That gang's going to do the same thing. And he pointed out all the different gangs that were in the unit that were looking for that 1 weak lamb that they could just slaughter. He said, you can roll with them, but I guarantee you that caseworker is not going to come help you when they run in your cell. Or you can roll with us, and we're going to hold you down. Took their little notebook, flipped it in the trash, I'm out on the yard. Because safety is paramount over anything else. Even though education was going to change my life, being alone was going to kill my life. So I hung with the fellas. I did that for 6 years. Stayed in the state for like 10 months. Got in so much trouble, they put me in a van and they kicked me out. They sent me to the federal prison system. They said, we don't want to house them in Mass anymore. So they said, I went on a 2.5-year prison tour of the country through the federal system. Pennsylvania, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Indiana. I went all over the place. Alabama. I was in places I'd never been before. And I just kept feeding into this life. And finally, they sent me back. When I get back to Massachusetts, I get in more trouble when I find myself in solitary. And my mom came down to see me. And she said, boy, how'd you get in jail? I said, Mom, I'm working hard. This is not no easy work. And I started breaking it down, how I'm hustling and making moves. And she looked at me, and she's talking about the trumpet, and she's talking about swimming, and I'm talking about hustling. And she looked at me shaking her head. And she walked out of there crying. I'm like, why is she tripping? I'm saying my father was in the street, my stepfather was in the street. You know what I'm saying? This is what we do, we hustle. Why is she tripping? She should be happy that I'm stacking up in the penitentiary. And she lost her kid. It was probably like a year and a half later, I had an encounter when I had like an epiphany moment when I realized that I was the king of nowhere. That I had fought and struggled every single day for nothing. That I wanted to be this mythical prison gang boss, and it meant nothing. There were people in Texas, there were people in California, there was people in my own neighborhood that didn't care that I was some mythical prison boss. And it meant nothing to nobody, but I made it make sense to me. I thought I was winning, and that's the thing people don't understand. People in jail think they're winning. People in bad situations think they convince themselves that they're winning. And in spite of the fact that I'm locked in a cell and all the rest of the stuff, I convinced myself I was winning. And I said, okay, well, if I can't be a boss in here, what do I want to be? I said, well, I want to be free. So I said, first thing was, I want to be free. I looked around at all the different people in prison, white, black, Spanish, the ball players, the Muslims, the chess players, the Christians, everybody. Everybody got free, and everybody came back. So I said, free don't work. Free's a trick. Don't want to be free because it don't work for nobody. So I want to be successful because successful people don't come to prison. So I said, I'll go home, be successful. I deduce successful people come from college. So I said, I'll go home, go to Harvard University, and I'll be successful. I told all my friends, I'm going to Harvard. They thought I was crazy. I called my parents. They thought I was crazy. I called my dad. He was like, you can't do it. They won't let you. I'm like, what are you talking about? He grew up in Petersburg, Virginia in the 40s. Had my father stood up in Petersburg, Virginia in the 40s as a 15-year-old kid and said he was going to Harvard, they probably would have hung him for being a little uppity black kid. So he was scared that they were going to do something to me because I was doing crazy talk, as he called it. But I finally realized that I'm going to have to do this by myself. Taught myself to read, taught myself the law, reversed my case on appeal, went to every self-help group that wasn't nailed down. I started going to programs that didn't even make any sense. When I went to NNAA, I don't drink or smoke. But the guys told me, substitute alcohol for anger. Substitute drugs for anger. I went to everything that wasn't nailed down, and I tried to make myself better based on what was available. And after 8 years, not 8 weeks, 8 years of studying and working for 20 hours a day, I got my release. And when I walked out of prison, it was like, okay, I was scared. I mean, I was this big time, whoever you want to call me, behind the wall, but I'd never been free as an adult. Never been out as an adult. I came home with a plan of helping myself and helping other people. I went from the prison to the parole office to a youth center. 90 minutes after I got out, I gave my first talk to 15 young boys who looked just like me, little black kids who were on their way to the penitentiary. I said, you're going to jail not because you're black, not because you smoke weed. Somebody let you down, they disappointed you, and you're hurt, and so you act out. So I made it a commitment to teach trauma-informed care because that's what sent me to jail, not understanding my trauma. And we just been, from day one, I stepped out, to day now. 21 years I've been home. And all 21 of the years have been committed to helping our young not go to jail and helping people transition out. And most importantly, what drives me over everything else is I think of the help that wasn't there for my mom. Because my mom tried everything under the sun to help her boys. Me and my brother both went to jail. So when I came home, my main thing was my mother would never be embarrassed to say my name again. Because for 14 years, she loved me, but saying my name was embarrassing. Never again. Wow. I will stand on that. Wow. And we're there. I appreciate you walking through this with me, because for me, it's always hard going back.
Right. So my outlook on children being set up for the penitentiary is, I absolutely agree with it. I have a brother that's 40 years old now. I just had an experience with him. We lost our mom in 2019, and it was just me and him. So when you talk about, especially little black boys being set up for the penitentiary, absolutely. With my brother, I feel like it was the drugs. They tried to make you put your kids on drugs at a very young age. They say if they're if they have some type of, if they're hyper, or if they have some type of gift that maybe the doctors don't understand, then they automatically put a title on it. And I feel like with that title in the school system, they utilize that title to put a mental strain on our children. And I have a nephew that's 23, I believe, and he's in the penitentiary right now for the same thing. And it's like it's almost a generational curse. So I feel like we, as black communities, we need to stop the generational curses in different ways. It could be coming up with some type of community project for the children. As far as the schools, I feel like they need to start, like you said, when you lost your dream. So if you would have had someone in school to help you bring that dream out, even though you were going through things at home, if you would have had a program at school that you could go to talk to about that dream, then it would have been somebody there to not allow you to give up, or to push you into that dream. And I feel like in the school system right now, that's what we need, instead of pushing down education that they're not even going to use anyway in the education system. It's just to set them up for failure anyway.
I wouldn't say so much the systems are set up for failure. It's not designed for success.
Right.
So you can make it. My sisters went to the same schools we went to, but they had different experiences.
Right.
And trauma-informed care is, me and my brother Eric, we lived in the same house. He made it, went to the Navy. I didn't make it.
Right.
My little brother, he could read and write before me. He didn't make it, and I didn't make it, but for different reasons.
Right.
Trauma affects each person differently. We were
Right.
all born in the same house, but we all have 3 different experiences. My mom told me this one time. There's 6 of you, there's 1 of me, but each one of you had a different mom. Because I was a mom to my oldest one way, then to the next, and the next. By the time she got to me, my younger brother, she is a drastically different person.
That's true.
And the reason Cafe Hope exists is because of my mom. Because your brother, your nephew, my nephew right now is locked up, and they have him on meds, and the whole thing. I said, Dre, well, what can you, I wake up in the morning, I got one goal. What can I do to be helpful? And that's it.
Right.
When me and my brother were going off the edge, and she couldn't stop us, and then we went to prison, she didn't know what to do to help us, so she did the best she could. But how much better could she do if she had real information about how things work and how things move?
Right.
And that's what Cafe Hope is about. To take these stories and to take real people and real experiences and be available.
Right.
So the next mom, because there's 2.2 million people in jail. And there's another 8 to 10 million people on supervised release, and that's not counting juveniles. Where do those moms go for help?
Right.
They're gonna come right here.
Yeah.
And we're gonna help those moms, we're gonna help them aunties, we're gonna help them sisters, how to navigate the system, how to make things better.
Right.
Because I've managed to be home 21 years
Wow.
and be successful throughout. And a lot of that experience and knowledge needs to be shared.
Yes.
So I get on stages around the world and I give lectures, and people love my life story. Saudi Arabia, Australia, Guatemala, I've been all over the world.
Wow.
And they love the story. And I'm giving it all over the world, but I'm not giving it to you.
Right.
I've been giving it to all these people who may not need it. They might be inspired by it. They might even be like, applaud for me, but their kids generally aren't doing 20, 30 years in the penitentiary.
Right.
And so I wanted to come back and say, well, how do I give back to the moms? How do I give back to the community in a way other than just setting up an after-school program? If I create a GED program, I can put 100 kids into college.
Absolutely.
But if I create a platform for moms, we can put 1 million kids into college.
Absolutely.
Because moms never go anywhere. Sisters either. My favorite sister held me down. So as you say that, my favorite sister, shout out to Amani, you know what I'm saying? My favorite sister, when I first went to prison, I was never supposed to come home. And I'll never forget it. The day I got sentenced, March 23rd, was the day she gave birth to her daughter.
Wow. That's my
And-
brother's birthday.
And I got the word. You know what she named her daughter? Chantel Andre.
Wow.
And she told me, your name will never die.
Wow.
She said, you may never walk out of there, but your name will never die. And that's a sister's love. And she stuck with me the whole way.
Wow.
And my mom stuck with me the whole way. And my grandmother as long as she could. And so Cafe of Hope is for a place where community folks can come and get real questions asked and real answers to the real questions, not the mummy version.
Right.
My mother always said, yeah, it's the mummy version. I'm gonna give it to you straight, because I want you to be better equipped, better informed to help your loved one.
Right.
But I definitely appreciate you being in. Again, we wanna help you with your brother. This isn't just about the people who are home watching. You need help with your brother, you need help with
Absolutely.
your nephew, and the Cafe of Hope is for that.
Yes, sir.
I'm saying this is not for anything else. It's not for second or third option. This is how do we get help for loved ones who are either inside, who have come home, and God forbid we want to stop people from going.
Absolutely.
So we want to work on all three. This isn't a reentry program.
Yeah.
This is a no entry program. How do we stop them from going?
Yes.
And I do work in schools, but irrelevant. I want to work with moms and aunties and sisters, because my sister just could do the best she could do.
Yeah.
And that's what this is about. And I appreciate you.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And I want to hear more about your story. I'm going to have you come back on another episode, and I want you to tell us your whole story, and we want to get to the point of how we can be helpful.
All righty. Absolutely. Thank you.
When my mother was struggling to find help for me as a young man, there was nobody who understood our problems and I could relate to. So after many failed attempts, I ended up in prison. My mother's sense of failure, shame, and stress were real. The worst part was she went through it alone. She was alone in trying to keep me out of prison. She was alone in navigating the prison system. And she was also alone trying to help me re-enter post my release. The Cafe of Hope was created so you don't have to go this journey alone. I know firsthand by real experiences what you're facing and you're feeling. We are here for you. I wish I could have created the Cafe of Hope for my mother back when she needed it, but I guess it was meant for us to go through this test so we can bring you our testimony. Thank you for allowing us to help support your family.